neuroscience reason for foot fetishes.
Okay. Whew.
I don't know how much feet you can show on Twitch, though. I don't know if it's wrong if you show other feet as long as you're not showing your feet.
As long as I'm not showing my feet? Alright.
We might get booted first time.
We might, yeah, first time out the gate. We might be about to get kicked off of Twitch. Awesome. Foot fetishes. Apparently there's like a rule on Twitch that you can't show your feet because people find everything sexy and a fetish. And so
But
they...
you can show just about every other part of your body.
yeah, like you can show cleavage. You can't show feet. You can show...
a lot of leg.
You can show a lot of leg. Like, you can wear some, like, booty shorts. And basically show, like, ass cheek. But feet cross a fucking line on Twitch, apparently. So there's that. Although I'm going to be honest with you, like, if I could just kind of live my life and just chill doing my thing and not wear shoes and make money for it, hey, there you go. But what is the reason for foot fetishes? All right, let's give this a go and see what we can find out. I'm kind of curious why you picked this question.
Because I thought it'd be interesting.
All right. So I am actually going to start. That's not the word I'm looking for. Web of Science. Okay. So I would say if anytime we're going to be talking about fetishes in a lot of ways, we're actually probably going to be looking at a lot of people making a lot of shit up. So where I say that is we're rapidly getting into the field of evolutionary psychology, which is in a lot of ways super total bullshit. So a lot of like science bros really love to use evolutionary psychology to justify their shitty opinions of like, here's why men are better than women and it is evolutionary and whatever else. And like, this is a thing you see a lot. You see people talking about, oh, we do things this way because it's in evolutionarily, it's in like it's an advantage to do this, or it's an advantage for men to do this. So you see that a lot. I fucking hate evolutionary psychology because it's all just theory and very little actual science. Like, it's people saying this seems reasonable and not people saying like this is it. Like, it's people observe a behavior and then they're like, well, what could explain this? Oh, this is possible. As opposed to actually kind of measuring, okay, neurobiology, walking a fine line there. So it's very, it's a lot of people talking out of their ass a lot of times. And just like, what, this thing that humans have developed, what is the evolutionary purpose of it? I think this sounds good. So with that disclaimer, fetishes. Okay. The psychology and neuroscience of fetishes. All right, here we go. I don't even know where to start searching. That's not going to make this rapidly like a legit really not safe for work stream. So neuroscience of fetishes. Science behind sexual fetishes. Survival of the fetish. These are some... These are a lot of sources that I don't really trust, so we're going to Wikipedia.
Academic studies have found that feet and foot accessories are the most fetishized of all non-genital body parts.
What are feet and what?
And foot accessories.
Foot and foot accessories are the most fetishized
Body parts.
body part. Outside of, well,
Genitals.
you can't really have a genital
shoes
fetish.
that you would maybe
Yeah.
steal from a woman's car.
So foot fetishes are super fucking common. Let's see how many people have foot fetishes. Percentage of people with foot fetish.
Nearly half of all fetishes focus on feet.
So 33% of fetishes were 33% of fetishes are foot fetishes. No, sorry, body part fetishes. So body weight or feet. Objects associated with the body, like headphones or shoes, came in at 30% of fetishes. Foot fetishism. Oh.
I think I said you had some interesting information.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Among those preferring body parts, feet and toes were preferred by 47% of the sample and 32% of the object group. So, yeah, that's pretty fucking common. Oh. And I apparently just got sent some... Can I just say while I'm like checking this message that you sent me, I'm really upset that they're getting rid of Google Inbox. Makes me very sad. I'm just like hearing giggles from behind me and I don't know why.
I'm researching the how much pee fits in the balls question.
Okay. So why do people have foot fetishes? Awesome. Oh, this is fantastic. An Arkansas man identified as the toe suck fairy was arrested Monday following a series of events. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this study is quoting this guy, V.S. Ramachandran, who has written some really awesome neuroscience books. But what he studies is phantom... Here, I will pull up this page for you guys to see. So what he studies is phantom limb pain. And, which is... Or phantom limb sensations. It's not always pain. It can be itching or tickling or something like that. And so what phantom limb pain is when someone has a limb amputated, oftentimes they when somebody has a limb amputated, oftentimes they still have feeling where that limb used to be. And there's a bunch of different kind of theories for why this might be the case. One theory on it is basically that the neurons like were firing and it was before the limb was amputated, like the neurons from that part of the body that were kind of picking up sensations. And so once you cut off that limb and you just very suddenly cut off the input to those sensation neurons, they're just kind of like trying to like make do with their best guess. And it's like, well, this is the last thing I was feeling, so that's probably what I'm feeling now. One problem with that theory is then that would suggest that that's kind of like what you're always going to feel. And my computer is not very happy with me trying to pull up this story, and it's not going well. And everything is frozen, and my world is falling apart. Why did you send me an article that broke my computer? Okay. Ugh, gross. Okay, so and V.S. Ramachandran is super known for his work on this kind of phantom limb. He is a big proponent of this thing called mirror therapy for phantom limb sensation, where essentially you have a box that has like a mirror in it, and you put your limb, your good limb. So if you've had your my computer is like spazzing out right now, stick with me. So if you put your good limb into this box, and it's reflected in the mirror, and so then you just kind of like, well, like let's say you had like a finger amputated, and then you just kind of like move your good finger around, but because of the mirror, it looks like it's, in this case, my left finger, and that kind of like reestablishes some kind of connection between with the brain and the left body part. Like you kind of like see it moving, and it can, something about that does something to sometimes treat phantom limb pain. That's definitely not a thing that always treats phantom limb pain. It's not always successful, but that is one of the treatments for phantom limb pain. And so what's happening in the brain is that we have in our motor cortex and our somatic cortex, so the parts of the brain that deal with moving, the parts of the brain that deal with like feeling sensation, our somatosensory cortex, we actually have what was I about to say? We have these maps essentially of our bodies, and they are called it's called the homunculus, which is a really fun name. Plural is homunculi. And basically each part of the body has like a very specific section of the brain. How big that section is depends on how important that part of the body is. So like the representation of the hands, the fingers in particular, the mouth is really, really big in the brain as compared to like your thigh. Because it just is not as important to know what your thigh is feeling as your fingertips, your fingers, or your, like as you're putting like food into your mouth or things like that. And so one theory for this kind of phantom limb pain is that your brain just kind of isn't erasing the, for example, left arm part of the brain. So apparently in some people with amputated feet and legs, our brains are super plastic. So they change a lot. And they change a lot based on experience. And so like they're constantly rewiring themselves. So if you're not using a part of your brain, it's going to stop being connected to other parts of the brain. And so the other important thing to kind of note about these body maps is that they are really arranged kind of in the same order as your body is. So the foot part is next to the leg part, is next to the like genital part, is next to, you know, kind of moving up. So apparently in some people with foot amputations, they didn't just, these people were actually, their brains seemed like they were actually being rewired in a way that kind of connected that missing foot area to the like genital area. And so the foot area and the genital area of the brain are right next to each other. And so in these people, apparently they reported feeling sexual pleasure and even orgasms in their missing feet. So like, I don't know, a foot orgasm? Okay. I don't know why I looked at Jesse when I said foot orgasm. But yeah, so the theory is then that there's some cross-wiring in people with foot fetishes. There is some like cross-wiring that is connecting the foot area of the brain to the genital area of the brain. And so where that comes can also be really important is, right, because foot fetishists oftentimes, like, they're not necessarily feeling sexual pleasure in their own feet. They're finding other people's feet sexually attractive. So there's this thought that there is this thing called mirror neurons in the brain. You'll hear about them a lot, but they're not totally confirmed as of yet. But the idea of mirror neurons is that this is kind of the basis for empathy. This is the basis for understanding other people. And it's basically that when we watch somebody do something, then when we watch somebody do something, then the same neurons in our brain fire as would fire if we were actually the ones doing it. So if you see somebody like pick up a cup and like reach and put it on the other side of the table, and if you watch them do that, the motor neurons for like your right hand and arm are going to be firing as if you were picking up that cup and reaching and putting it on the other side of the table. So if that's the case, and if there is this like kind of cross wiring, then I can definitely see how kind of like looking at somebody else's feet is causing like mirror neurons in your foot area to start firing. And then that, if it's like cross-wired with the genital area, that's going to result in you having some feelings of sexual arousal. Maybe? I don't know. I'm totally making this shit up as I go. Let's see. Oh, here's an article from Psychology Today of a brief overview of foot fetishes. Let's see if... Nope, it's still gonna be cranky when I try to put it on my other display so you can see it.
I still like Freud's argument.
What?
I still like Freud's argument.
What was Freud's argument?
That feet look like genitalia.
Oh, feet look like... Wait, which ones? Feet look like penises or feet look like vaginas? Apparently Freud thinks that feet look like genitals.
Yeah.
Now I'm really...
Foot shape is distinctly phallic.
Freud thought everything was distinctly phallic. Jesus Christ. Dude, had he ever seen a penis? Like, those are not remotely the same.
He also wanted to have sex with his mom, so I don't know if he's a reliable source.
All right, let's see.
But supposedly Elvis had a foot fetish.
Let's see. Elvis Presley, Andy Warhol, Casanova, Ted Bundy, Thomas Hardy were all foot fetishes. How does that even like come up? Like, is this like an interview where people are like, "Oh yeah, I really like feet"? I'm very confused. They're usually interested in the size of the foot, the shape, adornments, embellishments. Okay. French novelist Nicolas Edme Retif wrote extensively about his own footwear fetish. All right. Here's a study out of Italy. Yeah, okay. We've already talked about that. A 2006 report by AOL, if that's not the most 2006 shit you've ever heard. AOL asking people about their fetishes.
No, AOL still existed in 2006.
Of course AOL still existed. I was using AIM so much in 2006.
Oh yeah, you have a question.
Oh. Could you electroshock someone into having a fetish? Maybe? Let's see. So, if you were electroshocking somebody, I assume you mean that, like, electroshocking them by putting, not like electroshock to the brain necessarily, but like electroshock to the part of the body? Like, if you were going to put, like, little shock electrodes on the body. Okay, so we're going to put a quick... I'm going to come back to this, but I have another fucking tangent because now I'm having fucking nightmares. Thanks very much. So, when I started graduate school, the first project that I worked on, I was studying fear conditioning in people, and I used fMRI, and I would put them in the fMRI in this giant magnet, but the way that we did this was that we would shock them. Like, we would put electrodes on their ankles, like, you know that, like, tendon that's, like, right above your ankle bone? I'm reaching, like, not that you can see. But we would put electrodes, one on each side of their ankle, and shock them. We did this, of course, with undergraduates. We tried offering, like, extra credit for their psychology classes if they did our study, and the review board was like, no, you can't do that. This study is so long. That would be all of their extra credit points for the semester. They would be getting 15 extra credit points for this study, and that's coercive. So instead, how about you pay undergraduates $100, because that's not coercive at all. So I spent, like, fucking 3 years of my life, like, electroshocking undergraduates' feet and ankles. And so now I'm really horrified that I've given someone a foot fetish. God damn it. Anyway, so stimulating. Okay, so stimulating the brain, yeah. So we have a couple things there. One, obviously super hypothetical, because unless somebody is, like, having seizures and you're already doing open, like, brain surgery, you're not really allowed to stick electrodes in somebody's brain, which is some bullshit. But, yeah, so pathways being proximate, you probably, like, definitely could electroshock somebody into having a fetish. So if you, for example, like, were stimulating either, like, that genital area or some of the other parts of the brain that are associated with sexual arousal, if you stimulated those at the same time as somebody, like, I don't know, like, looking at a picture of something, or if you were doing, like, or stimulating the parts of their brain that was associated with the representation of something, then you have this idea. It's called Hebbian plasticity, named after this dude named Hebb, but it's often boiled down to neurons that fire together, wire together. And so basically, if neurons are firing together a lot, then you're going to strengthen the pathway between those two parts of the brain. And so this is a mechanism of learning that, like, basically of conditioning, like Pavlov's dog, and it's here's the bell, and then you get the food, and then you can like teach the dog to start salivating even without giving them the food, just when they hear the bell, because those two, that like auditory stimulus and that auditory part of the brain and then like the food reward part of the brain has been firing together enough that it, like, that pathway is super solidified. So if you were to like stimulate some of those arousal areas, like, you could definitely, I would assume, use it as some sort of way to basically condition someone to have a fetish, in the same way that you like treat so like mice and stuff. We will stimulate kind of their reward parts of the brain when we give them various things, and they like will treat whatever it is like drugs, or even just that stimulation. Like sometimes they'll pick that over little mouse cocaine, which incidentally, you can get gummy, like little like fruit snacks that are filled with cocaine for mouse behavioral studies. That happened in my lab that I worked in when I was in college, and we all just like would always get really hungry for fruit snacks. And we were like more interested in stealing the fruit snacks than stealing the cocaine. But yeah, so it's this very like conditioning kind of thing. So I would assume that if you were stimulating that part of that reward part of the brain, that sexual arousal, sexual pleasure part of the brain, that you could definitely condition a fetish to really whatever you wanted. Whatever you were able to expose someone to while you were doing that.
Or you can make a male model want to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Yeah, it's exactly like how you would make a male model want to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Actually, it's not, because wasn't that like subliminal messaging?
It's subliminal messaging, but they also had like electrodes on his forehead or something like that.
Okay.
Can I ask a terrible question?
Oh God.
Is that the type of stuff that they would try to do in like Indiana's anti-gay therapy stuff?
So Jesse just asked me if that's the kind of stuff that they would do in Indiana's like anti-gay therapy stuff. So as far as I know, yes and no. So they're not, as far as I know, they're not doing any stimulation. Like, as I said, like, you can't stick an electrode in someone's brain. As completely unethical as conversion therapy is, sticking a electrode directly in somebody's brain would raise even more red flags for, like, people. We can have a conversation about, yeah. But so what a lot of them are doing is they're using aversion therapy in that same kind of conditioning way, where they will present sexual images with something really disgusting or gross or something like that. And so you like, it's that same kind of learning process, but just hoping people start to associate this type of sexual imagery with either bad smells or pain or screaming or whatever it might be. You can, so we do.
Clockwork Orange-esque.
What?
It's very Clockwork Orange-esque.
Yeah. I've actually never read Clockwork Orange.
Oh, you should.
And so yeah, like that's we do have opportunities now, where we can non-invasively stimulate the brain. So we have direct current transcranial magnetic stimulation, and then we have an electric stimulation that works by putting in the electric one, you kind of put two little electropads on the head and then apply kind of like an electric pulse, and it will send kind of a signal across that is stimulating the brain. The magnetic TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, is similar, where you put this like thing that's kind of flat, and you put it on the side of, or wherever on someone's head, and you turn it on, and it sends a magnetic pulse. And because magnetism and electric signals are really closely tied, that magnetic pulse will cause neurons to fire. And so you can actually use this, and it's really easy to see. TMS is super safe. But you can like do it over somebody's motor cortex, and you just like turn this machine on, and their like hand or foot or like their hand or arm or whatever will start moving. And so this is used a lot in like physical therapy and things like that, to, as you're doing your physical therapy, to kind of be making areas of the brain fire to speed up and how quickly you're learning or you're picking up on things in physical therapy. So theoretically speaking, maybe you could use transcranial magnetic stimulation to induce a fetish in someone. But one of the problems with TMS is that it's super it's not specific. So if you're doing electrical stimulation, like with an electrode in the brain, you can put that electrode into the exact part of the brain you want to stimulate. And I'm doing this because that's like kind of how you hold brain electrodes. But you would have to like put it, but with TMS, you're just kind of putting it here. And so everything in that pathway is going to get hit. And so I think that would make it a lot more difficult to use that as a way to stimulate the brain in order to induce a fetish, because you're going to be hitting like a lot of shit, and it's not like really focal. So I don't know, like it would be kind of hard to make sure you were hitting the right thing, especially because a lot of these reward areas of the brain and those kinds of emotional areas of the brain that are involved in sexual arousal are really deep in the brain. So they're like, the motor cortex and stuff is really easy to mess with because it's like right on the surface, like right next to your skull. But a lot of those areas that are associated with reward or emotion are like way at the center of your brain. And so you would have to have like a pretty strong magnetic pulse to reach that far. You would have to have like, and it would hit a whole bunch of shit on its way to that part of the brain. So don't try it. I would say if you get your hands on a TMS machine, don't try to give somebody a fetish. This has been my disclaimer for the day. Okay. All right, so going back to the Psychology Today article, like here is where we're getting into some of this like behaviorism, like really reading into shit that in a way that is just people talking out of their ass. Yeah, connected in the learning process. So a lot of fetishes people believe are like the result of something that was conditioned at some point to be enjoyable. Feet are the first parts of a mother or father which a toddler touches. Is that... I don't think that makes sense. Like, why? Because they're short and crawling around? Parents often play with toddlers by pushing them with their feet or letting them ride on their feet. Another aspect involved in sexual attraction of feet is that love objects always have a barrier obstacle to attainment, and feet are less available to many partners than the genitals. They do not make demands for sexual performance, unlike the genitals of a partner. So this is all just Dr. Brenda Love, shit you not, who apparently has a sexual encyclopedia. Yeah, I'm taking a drink for that one. The science drinking game right there. It's just making shit up right there. Like, all of that is just maybe it's this? Like, this bitch has no data. She doesn't know, like, these are all just theories with nothing to back it up. That's the neural crosstalk that we talked about. Okay, this is super interesting. So apparently there are significant increases in the sexual interest of feet going back to the 1100s, specifically during STD epidemics. So, like, recently during, like, the AIDS epidemic, foot fetishes have become, and other kinds of fetishes have become more common, because people are looking at them as safe sex alternatives. But even going back as far as the 1100s, like when there were outbreaks of like syphilis or gonorrhea or like herpes or anything like that, people would kind of turn to foot fetishism as a form of safe sex. So where I'm going with this is that I really, really hope foot fetishism is taught in abstinence-only sex education. Because it is
a great way to not get laid.
Like, it's a fun alternative. Like, we don't need to be naked to have fun, I guess. What the fuck does this mean? Another view is that the feet and genitals are in the same visual window, and when looking at one, the other will be in view as well. I do not have feet growing out of my vagina. Like, what is this person talking about? Like, my feet are solid, like, I'm short, so my feet are a solid, like, at least 18 inches from my genitals. Like, it is very easy to only see my feet or only see my genital region. Has the person who hypothesized this, like, ever seen an actual human? I'm so confused. Okay, well, apparently foot fetishes happen because people have feet growing near their genitals. Cool. Great. Glad we had that conversation. Okay, so in a sample of gay and bisexual foot fetishists, male feet and footwear were arousing because they're hella masculine. Similarly, that male heterosexual fetishists, female feet footwear is super fucking feminine. Which, like, I can definitely see that. Like, for me personally, I associate masculine feet with, like, super hairy and kind of gross, but I mean, I can definitely see how people might see, particularly like the footwear, as being super representative of masculinity or femininity. I can accept that. The foot fetishism typically starts around adolescence, and it's often a product of learning from other males. So, if your dad has a foot fetish, he might train you to have a foot fetish. Yeah. There we go. Some of the neuroscience and psychology of foot fetishes. I've learned a lot. Like, apparently I should have feet near my vagina. Yeah. Super interesting. I will say, throw out there that foot fetishes, in addition to being one of the most common fetishes, is also typically one that is not really affecting someone's life that much. Most people who have foot fetishes are not engaging with their fetish in as a replacement for a person. It's not really getting in the way of a lot of their relationships. So foot fetishists, super normal. You very rarely seek treatment because it's not really a thing that is getting in the way of their life, and it is very possibly keeping them from getting HIV. So, keep doing you. All right. Psychology.
Ready for a new one?
I'm ready for a new one.
What makes condoms have the warming and cooling effect?
What makes warming or cooling condoms have a warming or cooling effect? The science of novelty condoms. Cool. Let's do this.
Do they actually get hotter or colder, or do we just sense it as being hotter?
Right. Warming condoms burn, as is the third suggested Google. When I click on that. So while I'm quickly doing a search to get answers for people, I'll tell my fun story that in college I was in the Sexual Health and Violence Intervention and Prevention Club. How do they work? And one of our big event every year was called Project Condom. And we did a fashion show with all of the outfits made out of condoms. And so we worked with a condom brand who would literally send us tens of thousands of condoms in different colors that we would give out to various clubs and stuff that wanted to enter a dress or an outfit in this fashion show with condom clothing. And it was a super big deal. We got actual Project Runway contestants to be our judges, and it was super intense, but it was crazy fun. And if you Google my name, you still get me talking about a newspaper article of me talking about people wearing condoms as clothes. Let's try stimulating condom. How does it work? I just keep getting ads. What are oh, God bless. Guys, this is really depressing, Googling this. Because most of it is just questions from people who don't understand how sex works. And that's very sad. I hope they're engaging in foot play instead of genital play. Because...
I found something where the cooling might be menthol based.
Oh, that would make sense. Okay, so we think that cooling condoms are with menthol, are coated in menthol?
It's somewhere in the lubricant.
Oh, a menthol-based lubricant. Okay.
Yeah, well, also I've seen it's the lubricant that causes the sensation.
Okay, so
we might actually get better luck researching just
warming and cooling lubricants.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not actually in the condom itself, in the latex. It's in the lubricant. How does stimulating lube work?